Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. Sorry about the slight delay in getting this started. We had some technical difficulties, but we will let you all filter in here for a second and we'll go ahead and get started.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for joining us today. We appreciate your time and we look forward to hearing your presentation. Please feel free to start anytime.
Okay, has everyone come in? Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Such a pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to talk about the very exciting just on the edge of your seat topic of 10DLC texting. Obviously, texting is really important, but the most important thing is make sure that you're doing it right. So today we're going to kind of go through what I have learned over the last probably year and a half of working on this. It'll be a little bit of a shorter presentation, and we will have time for Q&A at the end. If you have any questions as we go along, please type them into the chat box. I will be looking at those at the end, so we won't be taking questions at the beginning, but we'll have time at the end for questions. As well as after this, I will send you a few resources. So let's get going. And first, let me introduce myself. My name is Chris Harrington. I am the CEO, co-founder, and co-owner of USherpa. We are a smart CRM and relationship engagement platform. We've been in the industry since 1995. I know I'm dating myself a little bit there. We started inside of a large Fortune 200 mortgage company. I think that's where I learned compliance from one of the best. And then we took it private in 2008. So I've got about 30 years of experience here. So as I'm going to be kind of walking you through this today, first of all, I am not an attorney and I don't play one on TV and I don't play one at USherpa. But again, as I mentioned, we do take compliance very, very seriously. And what I'm going to share with you today is when this law came out, I believe kind of towards the end of, I believe right in 2024, towards the end of 2022, we were in the middle of ramping up our texting. And we actually switched texting providers. We switched over to Twilio and we did a consultancy with them. So I paid Twilio some good money to help us make sure we were dotting our I's and crossing our T's and making sure that we knew that everything we were setting up at USherpa for texting was compliant. And then we spent really 6 to 9 months figuring this out and developing it. And one of the reasons that took so long is we're all pretty familiar with how regulations happen, especially in the mortgage industry, where they pass a regulation, but nobody really quite knows how it's going to work. This was exactly the same way with the 10DLC. They were still figuring out the registry, they were still figuring out their rules. I can tell you it took us probably 6 to 7 months to get our first campaign actually approved. So what I'm going to share with you today is what I learned from Twilio and then what we learned over that 6 to 9 months of development. So hopefully it'll kind of help you know what you need to be looking for, how to make sure that you're doing it compliantly, what are the risks for not doing it compliant, and then what are some things that you may want to be asking whoever is doing your texting. So here's a little agenda today. There's a lot of terms. What does 10DLC mean? What is P2P? What is A2P? What is CTIA, TCPA? We all love those acronyms. Obviously, going to talk about very important compliance. That's probably the most critical thing right now is how to be compliant with your texting. We're going to talk about some different ways that we're doing and we're seeing people use texting inside of the mortgage industry. And then in order to be compliant, you really need to make sure that you're managing your customer opt-ins and your customer opt-outs correctly. And then at the end, we'll do some Q&A and then I'll share with you the resources that I'm going to send to you. So again, Like I said, I am not an attorney, so please do not rely this on as legal advice. I really encourage you to seek guidance from your legal counsel, your internal compliance teams, and figure out how this maybe applies to you. I'm just kind of trying to give you some guidance based on what I have learned. All right, why did this kind of law get set? What's going on? We have all got those text messages and have had this face, right? Why am I getting this? Who in the heck is this person? You know, you're expecting to get a text message from your child that they arrived somewhere. You're firming up dinner plans with friends. You don't want this text message from somebody that you don't even know. And we all know texting actually is a great way to communicate. 98% of text messages that are received are read. But let me share with you another statistic on the flip side of that. 75% of Gen Z or millennials took one or more negative actions when businesses did not meet their communication preferences, meaning they sent them communication that they didn't want at the wrong time. And that was according to a study that Twilio did. So this is not what we want. We do not want people when they receive our text messages to make this face. We do not want them to report us as junk. And I thought I would share this with you. This is the actual text message that I received 2 days ago. Hello, I'm Naomi with the Gig Smart Recruitment Company. We have got a part-time remote job where you can work from home and good pay. May I send you the job details, work demo, and salary details? Seriously, I can tell you this was my face when I got that. It was completely disruptive. I was in the middle of a meeting. I thought, maybe it was an emergency, something going on, something from one of my employees. Not really too interested in a part-time remote job. So this is what not to do. You can see there's no way for me to opt out. It was intrusive. And so what I did is I reported this as junk. And eventually that means these people are going to get in trouble. So that is what not to do. What we want is we want this, right? We want people to be happy when they receive our text message. Wow, my loan is approved. We're cleared to close. My docs are out. Or, maybe if it's even my loan officer, kind of reached out and wished me a happy birthday. That's what we're looking for. So the text messages that go out at the wrong time are really eroding customer trust. And that is not what you want. And I know we all get these. And so I know we can all feel the pain. So let's talk about some of these definitions. 10 DLC, what the heck does that mean? And who are the agencies and what are their goals? So what this is the TCPA, which is a Telephone Consumer Protection Act. We've all heard about it. They govern phone calls, they govern text messages. Well, they know this has completely gotten out of hand. We're all getting so many text messages that we didn't want and that we can't figure out how to stop getting. So what they did is they went to the CTIA, and that is a trade association representing the wireless communications industry. And they went and said, hey, CTIA, you need to help us figure this out. Carriers, we want you to be involved. So the CTIA got together and they came up with something called 10 DLC. So what does 10 DLC mean? It's really not that exciting. It stands for 10-digit long code. So what they did is they created, it's called the campaign registry, and it's for all texting that goes through being done with a 10-digit long code. Just that's a regular phone number. So basically the CTIA and the TCPA implemented this to protect consumers from unwanted and unlawful text messages. And the goal was the CTIA wanted to determine best practices. Hey, Verizon, T-Mobile, Sprint, here is what we're going to do to block or filter messages that we don't want. So this went into effect. They're kind of doing it in phases. I believe February of this year, they got pretty serious. So hopefully you will have seen some of your unwanted text messages have gone down. How I got that GigSmart one, I don't know. And it was actually from a 7-digit number, but I reported it as junk and I reported it as spam. And that is going to go back up the food chain. And that's going to be reported to whoever they're doing their texting. So again, that's really what they did, excuse me, is they said, phone carriers, we want you to get involved and we want you to block or filter messages. So that's kind of the goal. So again, we've got these two agencies working together. Obviously, we know the TCPA is under the FCC. So this is a very big deal. And this is like regarding like all texting that is done with a 10-digit long code. So a couple of other definitions is, what is P2P? Well, P2P stands for person to person. So that's texting that you do through your personal phone. That's the texting that you do to your friends and family. That might be texting that you do to your top realtor using your phone. That's considered P2P. A2P stands for application to person. All texting through a platform, this is really important for you to understand, all texting through a platform is considered A2P. It is not P2P. That is using your personal phone. So again, a 10-digit long code is the phone carriers basically offered specific numbers that are designed for the application to person deliverability, and it improves deliverability. So what that means, you have specific numbers that your texting providers like a Twilio have, that is a 10-digit number that is designed specifically for applications like your CRM, any other systems that you're using for texting to be able to do texting. And then that's going to improve the deliverability. Because again, they know that text messages are important. They want consumers to get text messages that they've opted in for and that they want. They know it's a very effective way for communication. They just want that unwanted, excuse me, messaging to stop. So hopefully that makes sense. And again, we're going to have time for questions and answers. So again, kind of defined all of those for you. So this is the really important slide. Compliance matters. There are very significant consequences to non-compliant messaging. So part of this 10 DLC that the CTIA put together is there's the campaign registry, also known as TCR, and every company or brand, they call it brand, but really it's your company. It's by your employer ID number. Every brand has to be, that wants to do texting, has to be registered with the registry. That's your very first step. You need to get your company or brand registered with the registry. Any unregistered messages really should not be delivered by the carriers. So if you're doing texting and paying for texting through a platform and they haven't done the brand registration or the next step, campaign approval, more than likely your messages are just not even going anywhere. So again, you have to get your company registered. And then the next step is campaigns have to be approved. So you have to send campaign messaging to the campaign registry. You have to show them the opt-in. You have to show them the opt-out. And it has to be by use case. So that's kind of a very much a texting term, but some of the use cases we're probably all familiar with. That one-time password reset, right? It's like, oh, I forgot my password. Please text me to reset my password. That would be like a use case. Or customer care, information to customers. That would be something like a loan in process, or maybe, a loan checkup, loan anniversary, like account notifications. We all get those from different things. We're notifying about, hey, this is what's going on with your account. That would be type of a use case. And then there is a marketing use case, which is what it is just completely marketing messages. And then there's kind of mixed, where it means it's maybe kind of a customer care and a marketing. So when you're getting your campaign sent to the campaign registry, again, it's the messaging, the opt-in, the opt-out process, and you need to even let the registry know what is the use case for this. And then you have to wait for campaign approval. Then the other really important part of this is consumer consent. And I can tell you, this has not changed. This has always been the TCPA's rules around texting. Customers must opt in for texting. It must be in writing or in a recordable format, like a web form that then somebody checks a button, yes, I opt in, and that is recorded. So again, you must honor opt-out. So again, your brand needs to be registered, your campaigns need to be approved, and you have to do consumer consent. If you're following those three things, your texting is compliant. And violations of the TCPA carry a very hefty penalty, between $500 and $1,500 per unwanted text message or phone call. Because again, TCPA also covers phone calls. I attended a webinar yes, I think it was a couple of days ago, hosted through the Mortgage Collaborative, and that was with Evocalize. And they had an attorney, his name was Eric Troutman, with Troutman Amin on there. And they were really talking about some of the TCPA, FCC changes around phone calls. And he shared a really interesting stat that there has been a 40% increase in class action lawsuits from violations of the TCPA in the last year. That's a huge increase. And kind of what it is, and think about it, is you've got attorneys out there that are in somebody's database receiving an unwanted message or an unwanted phone call and deciding to generate a class action lawsuit because it is very easy to violate it if you're not following these rules. So I just really want you to understand that the compliance really does matter. It's extremely important. And these penalties are not just at the company level. They're at the platform level of the company who is allowing you to send text messages wrong. And it's even down to the individual person who is sending the text message. So you can imagine that would add up very quickly, $500 to $1,500 per unwanted fine. So that's kind of what I want to kind of share with you. I would think a really important thing would be if you've got a platform that's doing texting for you, ask them if they're managing this for you or if they're expecting you to do it yourself. At Usurpa, that's something that we are doing for our clients is we're kind of managing that brand registration and campaign approval. Other companies may be just assuming that you need to do that on your own. So that would be really something important to find out. So now that I kind of scared you, let's talk about what are some of the use cases for mortgage. So here are kind of 3 examples of mortgage texting campaigns. A one-to-one messaging between the loan officer and one client at a time. And that would be through the platform. Again, this is not the text messaging where you're sending a message directly to your borrower or to your buyer's agent or your listing agent. This is anything that you're doing through the platform. Obviously, I think the best and the most powerful use of mortgage texting campaigns is during the loan in process. Text messaging notifying your borrowers and your agents of their loan milestones. Again, remember that stat I gave you that 98% of messages that are sent are read. But they do need to kind of opt in for this. But I mean, I would say most people would really love to be notified of, hey, my loan is in approval. My loan has been sent to underwriting. They get it right away. It doesn't get lost in their inbox and everything. So that is actually, I think, that's why it's in the middle, probably the best and the most powerful texting campaigns. And then marketing campaigns. That would be kind of anything, honestly, post-close, whether that would just be, sending them materials with information about home ownership, maybe trusted advisor information, links to newsletters, that type of thing. So anything that is to more than one person at a time, that is not transactional, meaning it's not tied to the actual loan or is not customer service related. And that is called marketing. And then the big thing I want you to take away in addition is these campaigns are assigned the specific use cases that I went over a minute ago. And so within the texting world, they need to opt in. Their opt-in should be specific to each one of those. So yes, I'm opting in for one-to-one texting. I'm opting in for messages while my loan is during the process, or I am opting in for marketing messages. And then one of the things, like, for example, in our platform for the loan and process messaging, we have set up a way to automatically send an email to somebody encouraging them to opt in for texting. So that would be something that you would want to know is, how do we go ahead and get them to opt in? But it is important to know that opt-in is specific to the different type of use case for the texting. So let's go over again, the opting in and the opting out, excuse me, is really a cornerstone to this brand registration, brand approval. That's kind of dotting I's and crossing T's. This is kind of really where rubber meets the road. Opting in. Customers and business partners. Yes, you read that correctly. Yes, you heard that correctly. Opt-in is mandatory. It is not different whether it's a borrower, a prospect, or your top real estate agent. If you're going to be texting them using an application, A2P, application to person, opt-in is mandatory. So you must get that consent in writing, or in a recordable format. The initial opt-in cannot be via text. If you text them to ask them to opt in, you have just broken the TCPA law. So they either need to, you actually have to have them write something and sign it, and that you have, or really the most easy way is a recordable format, sending them an email with a link to a web form. And I've got some examples in this deck. So again, it is anybody that you're texting with a phone that is going through the A2P. It doesn't matter whether it's a business to business relationship or a business to consumer relationship. And the initial opt-in cannot be via text. Another thing that is really important is it can't be tricky, can't be sneaky. So the opt-in must be informed and specific. So you need to be very clear on what they are opting in for. So if you kind of go back to this slide, am I opting in for just one-to-one texting with my loan officer? Am I opting in for messaging during my loan process? Or am I opting in for marketing messaging? And then not only do you need to be, it needs to be informed and specific, really a best practice is even to tell them the frequency. You know, like I'm opting in for loan in process messaging up to a week after closing. Or you could say frequency may vary because maybe you don't know on that one-to-one. You know, you don't really know how often a loan officer and a borrower or a realtor might be texting. So, but you're telling them that frequency may vary. So they need to be very informed on what they're opting in for. And then you must keep a record. You need to record a date and a time and then a unique identifier, maybe like an IP address or something like that. And that record needs to be kept because if someone were to file a complaint against you with the TCPA, that way you can go back, oh no, this client did opt in for this, and this is the day and the time that they opted in. And honestly, given the fact that, as I shared with you, the TCPA class action lawsuits have increased, the fact that those fines are so large. I mean, think about, if you sent out, 10,000 unwanted text messages, those numbers add up very, very quickly. So best practice is to do a double opt-in. When they opt in with that web form, you send them a text message that then they confirm. So again, I've got some examples of that. So hopefully that goes over really the opting in. You must get consent. They cannot opt in via text. You need to be very clear about what they're opting in for, if it's marketing, and then even, how frequently you'll be texting them, keep a record, and then the double opt-in is a best practice. So opting out, all opt-outs must be honored. So that's really important. So the initial message, the first message must tell them that they can reply with a stop, an unsubscribe, or the equivalent. So if you go back to that example of that text message I received a couple of days ago, it didn't tell me that I could reply with stop. And sometimes when I get messages that I'm not supposed to get, just because, I kind of some days live and breathe this, I type stop and nothing happens. They have completely violated TCPA. So again, the first message after they've opted in must tell them that they can reply with a stop, an unsubscribe, or an equivalent. Another important thing is as you're doing ongoing message, they've opted in, for messaging during my loan process, they can opt out at any time with a standard keyword. So for example, on our platform, at any time, we've told them the keyword is stop. At any time, if they don't want to receive messaging, they can say stop, and the texting needs to stop immediately. But after the opt-out, you can send them one message to confirm their decision. You can send them one last message, and then you would need their consent to re-engage. So that is the only text message you're allowed to send after they have replied stop. Now, a lot of systems in our system, they can opt out in kind of a consumer preferences page, which means, again, you must honor that opt-out. Hey, I don't want to opt in anymore. And maybe they've just unchecked the box inside of, their kind of their user platform. But you do need to honor that. But if they actually say stop, one of the things that actually, in this instance, stops them from getting any messaging, from anybody in that company. And then a best practice would be to regularly obtain consent and respect their recipients' change of interest. So what that means is, let's say they've opted in for marketing text messages, no more than 2 times a month. and you've gone forth, and now it's 6 months later, you might want to send them a best practice is, hey, here's just a reminder. If you would like to opt out, you can go ahead and do so by either saying stop or clicking here. So again, that's a best practice, kind of regularly obtain their consent that maybe I don't want to continue getting this, and record that opt out. So again, your initial message must always tell them how to stop their messages. Ongoing, you need to honor that at any time. You can send one final message after they've opted out. And sometimes maybe you can even change it. It's like, click this if you want to opt out of marketing messages. So maybe they still want that loan in process, but they don't want any marketing messages if they've opted in. You can kind of work on that type of information. And then again, regularly contain their consent. So here's some examples of how we've done it in our platform, because I've kind of told you opting in, opting out. Like, here's an example of an email that in our system we send out prior to any loan in process text messages going out. Hello, Joe, to keep you updated quickly on the status of your loan. It'd be helpful to text you updates as your loan moves through each stage. Text messages would be sent until a week after closing. If you'd like to receive text messages from me, please click here to opt in. So again, you can have different versions of this email, and then it would click to a web form sample. So here's a sample of a web form. Down here at the bottom, I agree to receive the following text messages. And again, right now, we haven't even received any marketing messages approved through the campaign registry, so they're not seeing that. But, I want to opt in for text messages about the status of my loan. Very specific, what are they opting in for, and even the frequency, up until a week after closing. This doesn't allow me to text them 6 months after closing. And then the other one is text messages directly from my loan officer. Frequency may vary. What we have gotten approved, once we get a marketing message approved, is marketing-based text messages about the mortgage industry, no more than twice a week. Again, you've got to give them frequency, because if they've opted in for a marketing message no more than twice a week, you can't text message them on a daily basis, because they only opted in for no more than a couple of times, not for daily. So again, you've kind of violated their opt-in. So that gives you an example of what an email message looks like, and kind of what an opt-in web form sample looks like. So again, just all of these things, again, I want you to know that when you're sending campaigns for approval, these are the things that they want to see. They want to see that opt-in process, and then they also want to kind of see the opt-out process. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to share with you some examples about opt-in and opt-out messages from the phone. So we've taken a very conservative approach with that double opt-in, which is an industry best practice. So once they receive this email, they've clicked this box that they wanted to receive the text message about the status of their loan. Then they were going to receive, hi, and then it's personalized from their name. Please reply with confirm to opt in receiving text messages from me. And you can see we've all seen these. We even say, again, best practice, message and data rates may apply. Our keyword is stop, text stop to cancel. And then they type in confirm. I think we've all seen this. And then you've successfully opted in. And again, message and data rates apply. Text stop to cancel. We've actually, again, being very conservative, we have that text stop to cancel almost every single email. So let's say at some point they say, ooh, I really don't want this anymore. I want to go ahead and type in stop. Here is that one final opt-out email. You've been successfully unsubscribed. You will not receive any more messages from this number, but it tells them if they did this by accident, reply start to resubscribe. So if they type in start, and it says you've been successfully resubscribed to messages from this number. So those are just some examples. Again, I would check with whatever platform you're using, but these are the things that we have had to send to the campaign registry. Not only, again, how are they opting in? Example of that form. We've had to give examples of the opt-in and opt-out messages. All that has to be sent before the campaign is approved. So just to kind of wrap up, and then we can kind of go to questions about compliant texting. we all know texting enhances communication. How many text messages do we all send personally to our friends and family, top business associates on a daily basis? So texting is a great way to communicate efficiently, but the penalties for doing it wrong, again, through an A2P format, are extremely high. And without it, the consumer consent, you're eroding your client's trust. And none of us want to have any of our borrowers or buyer's agents or listing agents make that face that I showed you in the beginning when we send them a text message. That's not what we want. We want them to get something that they really want that is timely and makes their day better. So hopefully that kind of helped you out. I'm going to, for anybody that's attended, I do have an ebook from Twilio that I'm going to be sending out. It's 22 pages of some light reading. So if you need some trouble sleeping at night, feel free to read it. But no, it'll give you a lot more detail than what I went in today. So it's an ebook. It's their guide to U.S. messaging compliance. And then at the very last page, it's got links to about 8 or 9 additional resources for additional light reading. The CTIA's entire wireless communication about this, as well as links to the TCPA, etc. But hopefully this kind of gave you a few ideas of how to get started with compliant texting, cleared up some of the miscommunication. And the biggest thing that I just want to opt-in is mandatory. You cannot text without somebody opting in. That is absolutely critical. So any questions? Looks like there's been a couple that have come in the chat. All right, so can we touch base on cybersecurity hack protection and the process for getting up and running again? Well, for cybersecurity and hack, again, I think that would really depend on what platform that you're using. I would make sure that they do have cyber insurance. There's been a lot of changes with cyber insurance. It's actually a lot easier and more affordable for companies to get. I would also try to find out what type of data they maybe have in their system, whether they're storing, social security numbers or year of birth, NPI information. I'm not sure if that's kind of your exact question. And, most platforms are using, are cloud-based. They need to go through a fair amount of security. I can tell you with Sherpa, we're Microsoft Azure cloud hosted, which I believe the National Department of Defense uses it. And we made a decision a long time ago to not store NPI so that's non-public information. But again, I think your other question was, how do you kind of get started? And again, if that is on texting, you can work yourself. You can go directly to Twilio or Bandwidth, some other texting platforms, and get your brand registered, get your campaigns approved. But I would, whatever, like if you're going to be doing texting through like a CRM platform, I would ask them if they do that for you. Again, we do that for our clients. I'm not sure that every platform does.
Great
Thank you.
information, Chris.
Yeah, so I don't know if there's any other questions while we're kind of waiting to see if anybody else has anything that I'd put on here. Here is our main line at the office that kind of goes to our client success team. But if you have any questions for me personally, they can always kind of forward you to me. There's my email. I'm more than happy to answer any questions directly. We're located here in Denver, and there is our website. But any other questions? Since we've got a little bit of time.
Chris, thank you so much for your time today. That was very, very informative. And we are so looking forward to your next webinar that's going to be coming out on August the 29th about unlocking success through the power of CRM. So we're looking forward to that session. And we will be sharing the recording along with any questions to the team after this. Maggie had a question on here. Any suggestions on how to reach out to your vendor on making sure that they are compliant?
Yeah, I would first, kind of reach out to your account executive. That'd be, whoever's your kind of your first line that you're communicating to. And again, I think we can even send them this deck, right, Mimi, and you'll get the recording of this. So again, first question, is my brand registered? Obviously, because you need to be registered. Are my campaigns approved? And then have them walk you through that opt-in, opt-out process. Because that seems honestly to me to be the biggest source of confusion. Well, one, people kind of don't even really know about the registration, but there seems to be a lot of people that think that you can send text messages without somebody opting in, and you can't, and it has always been that way. So what I would ask them is, my brand registered? Are my campaigns approved through the campaign registry? And walk me through that opt-in, opt-out process, because again, you're liable. Even if they're doing it, you are the one who's going to, the company and you and that platform are all liable for following these laws. All right, well, thank you guys for putting that in there. Amy put a chat in there for the next webinar.
All right. Well, Chris, thank you so much for your time today. That's some great information you shared, and we will definitely get this recording out to everyone. And we look forward to seeing you guys at the next webinar.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.